Hello, Dogg from Air Fans. It's Dogg and
Danny Dog.
here in the garden, and we're just gonna give you a little cute tour of what we're working on.
That was perfect.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna start by taking a look at our raised beds, and we've had these for a couple of years, but we just put the wood in at the start of the quarantine. So we started down at this end, and we've been adding beds just one at a time, trying out different methods with the cardboard sheets and things like that. And we're trying to mainly just use compost that we make and biochar that we make. So the beds themselves aren't full of soil, but that's okay. You can do that. You can add year after year, and it just gets better. And I guess I wasn't sure about putting in raised beds. I thought I might want to just have them down there. But big thing is we're so low in elevation here that our garden gets flooded, at least a couple times a year. So hopefully that'll help with that. And also just having the wood, it just organizes things, cuts down on your decision-making process. So when you don't have a actual boundary and you're having to take the spade and demarcate that every month or so, that's a lot of it takes a lot of mental horsepower. It's better used for other things. And so it enables a lot more complexity in your garden bed planning, which I'm going to get to here in a second. So this is our newest bed, and this one and the one next to it are both planted with okra, which hasn't gotten very tall yet, but the main thing you're seeing is just a sea of beans. And so I'm working on a system here where I plant a bunch of different stuff, as in I sow a bunch of different stuff at one time, and then it all comes up and I harvest it as it's ready. So what I did is I planted in each of these beds, I planted 3 rows of okra and then 4 rows of beans along with them. So like kind of a grid. And then I scattered a mix of radishes and turnips and carrots, and then some like companion plants like this marigold, and there's some nasturtiums in there somewhere. And one thing that I do like is, I don't know if you can see here on camera, but that bed is doing much better than this bed, and it was much more obvious earlier in the growing season. Now they've kind of both caught up. But what I like, it's very gratifying just to see that the system works, because that's another year of building up the soil. And then this is just the cheapest organic potting soil I could find, or organic topsoil of some kind, over cardboard with some organic fertilizer thrown in and scattered. So the soil, if I touch it with my hand, it's really only that tall. It doesn't come all the way up, but that's okay. Like I said, over time we'll get this filled, and we'll have that. So, but what I did anyway is I've already harvested all the radishes. I got about 25 pounds of radishes mainly out of these 2 beds. So we'll be able to double that without much extra work. And the radishes came out. Now we're on to beans. We're getting more beans than we need, which is great. And then in a couple months, the okra will start to come up, and that'll shade out the beans, and we'll just be having okra until we're sick of okra. One problem is that the okra that we're growing was seed that I saved from last year, and I did a poor job of taking care of that seed, so it got moldy, and we had to re-sow. And that is a weakness of this system, because when it came time to re-sow, there were all these beans that I had to kind of go in amongst. And so, if this was a commercial situation, that would be well, it was too much work for me. I wouldn't do it again. So anyway, we'll see how that okra turns out. And in general, I'm trying to organize my plots the way that a commercial grower would organize them, as far as I can understand from watching YouTube videos. So these are 30-inch beds, which is nice because you can reach across the whole thing. I can straddle them and move down. I don't have to go one side and then the other. And then the walkway is very narrow, so it saves, it's a lot of space is dedicated to growing vegetables as opposed to walking around the vegetables. So, all right, let's look at the tomatoes. And here we are, the lovely tomatoes. As you can see, got plenty of beans growing alongside them. I've already picked a bunch of radishes from this bed as well. But this highlights an advantage of this system, which is that even though I've got tomatoes in this bed and okra in those two beds, because I have the beans growing, I can compare the beans in each of these beds to assess the soil fertility. So, this is my first time really growing tomatoes, and so I got these cages. As I was reading about these cages, I was reading that I'm probably not going to like them because I'm barely getting any fruit and the tomatoes are already totally overtaking them. So next time I grow the tomatoes, I'll definitely grow them on some kind of a trellis system because that's a lot more practical. And we get so much wetness, so much humidity here in New Orleans that I'm finding rotten tomatoes, and I haven't even gotten any ripe ones yet, so that's a bummer. But I did go in and prune them a bunch, so hopefully that'll remedy that situation. But tell you what, these things are going to be great for is not tomatoes but banana cages. So we grow bananas along with our chickens, gives them some shade, but it also gives them a tasty snack. So when these are done growing tomatoes, they're going to go into the chicken run, and they're going to replace the handmade jobbers I got back there. And finally, I'm looking at my cucumbers, which has been the biggest and steepest learning curve for me this year because, again, I'm growing cucumbers for the first time, and I think I've made just about every mistake you can make growing them, but it's the end of May and I've finally got some cute little refreshing buddies on the vine. And this trellis is equal parts Buckminster Fuller and Rube Goldberg, but it's been through some heavy winds and it hasn't fallen apart yet. We'll see. So these I planted, I'm kind of making all this up as I go. It's jazz music. Planted some radishes in here, but turnips and dill, which is supposed to be good with cucumbers. Chard, and I can't even remember what else. But these are pole beans, which helps with your nitrogen. And I am leaning towards in the future doing the seed saving kind of thing. So this is a different species. This pole bean is a different species than the bush bean. I wanted to say too, before you start saving seed, it really pays to try out as many different seeds as you can. So for example, the beans that I'm growing, the bush beans are really scraggly and they get really nice big pods, but they are just too big. And that's a good thing about not having a fully filled raised bed because the wood is actually serving to restrain their growth somewhat. But if that wood weren't there, those beans would be in an unmanageable mess. So anyway, I got these kind of sharing the space with the cucumbers, adding somewhat to the soil nitrogen, I suppose. And then these turnips are about ready to come out. And one difference between growing cucumbers and okra is that when the okra gets big, it is going to completely shade out everything in that bed, and I'm not going to be able to grow anything else there. But with the cucumbers, they're not going to have that same thing. So maybe I'll be able to plant something else, you know, to keep that going. If not, I'll be able to get greens from the chard and dill from the dill and beans from the beans. So, but anyway, those are different things I'm thinking about with this system. It seems to be really good so far. I was wondering if the radishes and the turnips would be bad because I wouldn't be able to tell which was which, but that's actually not the case because the turnips basically have no roots at the time that the radishes are ready to pick, so you have no risk of confusing the radishes and the turnips. You pull all the radishes out, and then in a few weeks you pull out all the turnips, and then by that time you got cucumbers. So, alright. Here's a cucumber. This is about perfect for what I want to pickle them at, so that's ready to come off. I think it's the only one ready so far. This one is about at the same stage. It's skinny down at this end because it didn't get fully pollinated, but so we got to work on our bee population here, but that's coming along as well. So here's a close-up on our marigold here, which is a real big plant. I didn't expect it to get this big. And this is a companion plant for the rest of the stuff, you know, which means it has some sort of a beneficial relationship. Either it improves the soil, it improves the growth. Some of them attract predators, some of them repel pests, and some of them actually attract pests. So you'll have a bunch of aphids eating this and it won't eat the rest of your stuff. And I couldn't tell you why I planted these. I just read they were good for you. So there's that. We'll see if it comes back next year. I also planted nasturtiums. Again, these are a companion plant. I don't know what they do, but they're fun and pretty. And there's some big old beans. Alright, here's some turnips. I think I'm going to leave them in the ground for another week. The package says they're supposed to be ready for now. They're doing great, but they could use another week. This is dill. Good for cucumbers. Very Scandinavian. Very frilly. These are Korean radishes. They're one of my faves because they get big like a daikon, but they don't get watery like a daikon. They actually stay, you know, firm fleshed. So they're real good to eat. They're real good to cook and eat. These are, like I said, they get big like daikons. They don't get long, but they get big around and oblong. This one over here, a little bit better sized. Those are going to be great. And this is my second year growing these. And I really just love them. They're a good one for this climate that we're in. So I think this is our first little pole bean, which is a yard-long bean, and this is flower just about to blossom next to it. This is Vigna unguiculata, I believe. So it's not the common bean, which is Phaseolus vulgaris. It's a different genus entirely. It's the same species as your cowpea, crowder pea, black-eyed pea. So I'm growing this, as I mentioned, because I want to try saving the seeds, and I want to keep it separate from my bush beans. And I did actually save these seeds. I got them from a neighbor, stole them. Don't tell her. She'll probably watch this anyway, so hi Cheech. Thanks for the beans. Real big aphid problem, which I also had last year. And I think part of that is because this type of bean has smooth leaves. You can actually eat them, but they're not furry like the common bean has furry leaves, and like the scarlet runner bean has furry leaves. And because this end of the garden is right next to our grapes, which are right behind me, and the grapes also like the aphids, I think they're getting some synergy and they're attacking these beans more than I like. So the far end, no aphids, but these beans by the grapes really kind of overrun. So we're working on that. This is our muscadine arbor of To Kill a Mockingbird fame. And I've been going over these babies with a fine-tooth comb since we've had so much time on my hands. And it's been really cool observing how they grow and really learning how to prune them. So they don't look like it, but they are pretty pruned. And I would keep that in mind if you're planning on growing these. This is Vitis rotundifolia. It's the native North American grape, so not to be confused with Vitis vinifera, which is the European grape that you think of for wine. These ones don't have as high a sugar content, so if you make wine out of these, they actually add cane sugar. And so they grow like this, basically, and it takes a lot of leaves to grow the grapes. But up on the top, there's a lot more grapes than this part of it. So anyway, a lot to be said about these grapes. And if Danny pans down to the base, you'll see that I've also planted some puldeans down here. I need to prune this guy anyway, but they are small because somebody's chickens have been eating them, but they'll catch up. And they are kind of aphid ridden. So the grapes have some aphids on them, but I'm not worried about that because the plants are so big that they can deal with it. But the beans are another story. Anyway, more to be said about grapes, but that's it for now. So here we have our little fruit tree section. And first of all, this is a kumquat, which my brother and his wife gave me. And we actually brought this from Oregon. But it's doing great anyway. It's just coming into bloom. It blooms at a different time than the other citrus because it's a lot more frost hardy, so it blooms later. Anyway, happy with that. This thing is a moringa. This is like America's hot new superfood. You eat the leaves, and it's kind of more tropical, but it does fine here. It's been here. This is like the second or third year, and we've harvested this one time already. I don't know. We got a meal out of it, but I guess it's time to harvest it again. And then finally we have this fig, which I'm extremely disappointed in because I feel like I did such a good job pruning it into the perfect like bowl shape that you want, but the fruits themselves are just terrible because I don't know if you know anything about a fig, but it has the like eye in the bottom, and there's open eye figs and closed eye figs where it closes up, and these are open eye figs, and because we have such high humidity and rain here, the open eye figs tend to split. So these figs, they don't even taste great, you know, but the handful I've managed to get before the squirrels get or before they just disintegrate, well, they just disintegrate. So it's a LSU gold fig. So I don't know why LSU would make a fig like this. Sucks. Don't buy it. This is getting pulled out at the end of this year after this phenomenal pruning job I did, and I actually have a little baby to replace it with, and I'm excited about this because I stole this from a mansion in Natchez, Mississippi. So I pruned it off, used my clippers, and I just stuck it in the pot, and it's doing great. So I have no idea what to expect, but I assume since it was at a famous mansion, it's going to be good. Interesting thing about figs in Natchez, Mississippi, one of the first Europeans to set foot in Natchez in 1699 actually reported figs. The Native Americans were growing figs, and that's very strange because, of course, figs are an old world species. So there's a little bit of a mystery there. Maybe this is one of those pre-Columbian figs. And then we also have a tiny, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, we have a tiny little pomegranate.
And now we're going to take a walk through the chicken yard. Alright, here we are out in the chicken yard, and Ron and I are going to do our best to show you around. So it's a little hard to give you the 360-degree view of the yard, but I'm going to do my best to just point out the main points of interest here. Right in the center of the yard we have our chicken coop. Jevin did a wonderful job building. Love the way he designed it. We've got some ladies in there scratching around for some of their favorite treat, which is the black sunflower seeds. Behind me here we have the storage for said treats. This is one bin has their various different foods, which the chicks and the pullets need different foods than the older ladies do. You ready to go? So the first bin here has food, the second bin has our extra hay, and then we've got some other bins for snacks, which right now we are giving them to snack on black sunflower seeds and cracked corn. And then further behind me there you will see our compost area. Not that exciting, but that's where we that's where we throw the food scraps and all the yard debris from the yard work, which they love to dig through and eat all that stuff. And in front of me here, you'll see we've got some bananas growing at various stages of development here. The chickies love to eat them, so Evan has built these little fences to go around them to keep the chickens out, and that has allowed them to grow nice and big. So we're hoping to have a nice lush area for the chickens, just to add more shade to the yard. We do get plenty of shade throughout the day back here, even though it doesn't look like it. The angle of the sun as it moves across the yard throughout the day gives them shade from the fence, shade from the coop, and then shade from the other fence. But once we get these bananas nice and big back here, it's really going to give it a lush tropical feel for the chicks. Alright, taking a closer look at the coop over here. We're going to start with the purple door. What's behind the purple door? This is where their nesting box is. So, reaching right inside here is where the eggs are. And I'm happy to report today that it is a 7-egg day, which means every one of our laying leghorns gave us an egg today. Good job, ladies. Nice work. That's what I like to see. Right now we only have one nesting box. The 7 leghorns have been really good at sharing their nesting box, and they lay their eggs from about the time they wake up in the morning to, they're usually done laying by about noon or maybe 2 in the afternoon at the latest. So it would be better for them to have more nesting boxes so they didn't have to share. Now, the new chicks that we have will start laying. It's going to be a number of months before they start laying. So by the time that happens, we're going to do a little bit of redesigning inside the coop here and shorten their roosts up a little bit to make some room for some more nesting boxes right here. So we're going to add at least 2 nesting boxes, maybe some more But again, that's not right. It's not super urgent, as the new chicks are going to have a few more months before they start laying. I'm going to move over here to the door. And I really like the way Evan designed this door. So their walkway serves a dual purpose, and when you close it at night, safe, the walkway also serves as its own door. You close it there, and you open this little door here. So the chicks are really good at putting themselves to bed at night. We just have to come out after dark, close the door behind them so no predators can get in. But we open this little door. Nothing's really going to be able to jump up there to get them. They're still safe in the night, but then because chickens get up so much earlier in the morning, they have this little doorway here to let themselves out whenever they wake up in the morning. So door / walkway, double purpose. Behind us we've got the roosts back in there, and then we've got the mesh walls here because those of you who are, friends from Oregon or other parts where you are used to seeing closed-in chicken coops, it doesn't really work here in New Orleans. We've got a much more hot, humid climate, so you'd be looking at having more, mold buildup, that sort of thing. And Evan did a lot of research when building the coop and found out that for tropical and subtropical climates like New Orleans, the open wall system like this is really ideal and has worked really well for our chicks.
Alright, YouTube, well that's been a little tour of our garden. So thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.